Hello everyone! I'm so glad that you are able to find your way to my YouTube channel. My name's Alyssa. I have a bachelor's degree in early childhood education, and I did my senior experience on social emotional learning and trauma-informed practices. And today I wanted to talk about what are social emotional learning skills and how can we implement them in the classroom. Also, some resources that I found helpful when I did some research. So my bookshelf is super bare. We're moving in a couple weeks and I'm so excited. But first, let's start off with what are SEL skills, or social emotional skills. Now, how do we implement these skills in the classroom? Just embed them into all types of learning. It's most successful when we teach them from a young age, and it's very, very important that when children are younger, like in their very early years, like preschool, we are naming their feelings and we are showing them, wow, you look sad. And then they can say like, wow, I'm feeling sad. So it's really important that we name those feelings. We can read a book and say this and show them appropriate scenarios of how to manage their feelings, and put it into context of like, wow, this person feels really sad, and show them different scenarios. And it's important to show them those scenarios when they're not upset, as well as practice them when they are upset, so that when they do get upset, these scenarios, they know how to manage their feelings by themselves without an adult. So I want to talk about some of the resources that I found when doing some of my research. So I have, we'll start with this one. This is How to Talk So Little Kids Will Listen, and this is ages 2 through 7. There is another one that I think has different age groups, but I want to read something from this page 17. It's in the very beginning. Children need us to validate their feelings so they can become grown-ups who know who they are and what they feel. And I thought that was just so important, because how many times have you been a stressed out adult and you're like, I don't know what I need right now, I'm so stressed out. These are just such important skills for us to be teaching little ones so that they can grow up and be emotionally competent adults. So I think this is a really good book for parents to read, parents and teachers. I'll let you screenshot it if you want to. It's a good resource and it gives lots of scenarios in it. It talks about their kind of main theme is a toolbox, and just how to talk so that you're not demeaning towards kids and you're still giving them those tools. So this book actually goes hand in hand with they're not the same, but it kind of made me think of Teaching with Love and Logic. So if you've ever read Teaching with Love and Logic, I feel like sometimes people really love this and some people don't. This is kind of an outdated version, but it's the paper copy that I have. I have a like a ebook version of it that's more updated. But if you are like a first year classroom teacher, I would definitely recommend this for classroom management. This also goes into some scenarios and stuff, and they also have a parenting one as well for just how to talk to kids, discipline, things like that. So definitely would recommend this. So the next thing I want to talk about is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you have taken any psychology class ever, you've probably heard of Abraham Maslow and his hierarchy of needs. So what that means is that quick overview. Before you can do anything, your basic needs have to be met. And those basic needs are like hunger, having a roof over your head, being warm and like being clothed, and those super basic needs. Then that's when you can be ready to socialize and have friends. And then once you have friends, then you're more comfortable with other things. And then at the top of the pyramid, it's called self-actualization, which is supposedly most people don't achieve that. I'm not really going to get into it, but my whole point is that before we can be ready to learn, we have to have the base of our pyramid. And that means we have to be feeling safe and comfortable and have our basic needs met. Then we can be ready to learn. So that's where this book comes into play, Maslow Before Bloom. And I loved reading this book. It's called Maslow Before Bloom, Basic Human Needs Before Academics, which is like my whole like teaching philosophy. Like, we need to make sure, in my personal opinion, I think children need to feel safe, need to feel like they just need to be ready to learn before we can move on to other things. I hope that made sense. Was this book Mind in the Making? And I didn't get too far into this because I think it was more kind of a psychology resource maybe, but I still think it was a good resource into understanding like how children think. But this kind of goes over, as it says on the cover, 7 essential life skills that every child needs. And those life skills that it talks about are focus and self-control, perspective taking, communicating, making connections, critical thinking, taking on challenges, and self-directed, engaged learning. So, like I said, I didn't get too in depth into this book, but I think it's still a good read for educators and thinking about kind of how our little friends' brains work, especially like in the beginning, if you've ever heard of like the marshmallow test, kind of how children may not understand like waiting or that delayed gratification. There's marshmallows on the front. So just kind of like that. And this kind of, I don't think I cited this at all in my paper because it wasn't what I think it's a really good, important information. However, it's not quite, still some social emotional skills such as communication and like taking on challenges, because we need to teach our little ones to be resilient. I just didn't have anything like super specific to put into my research. So that kind of, speaking of taking on challenges, that kind of leads me into my next point, that children can take on challenges and they are resilient. There are a ton of outside resources for educators to use for social emotional learning, such as different books like social stories. There's books that talk about when it's okay to get upset, how to take on your feelings, and then there's also different programs. A couple of programs that I talked about really in depth are the Castle program and the Pyramid program. So if you'd like to hear more about that, let me know down below. So that's all I have today for resources, but I just wanted to say a few things that are really important that we can do in classrooms is keeping consistency and letting children know that our classroom is a safe space, validating children's feelings, and also a really important thing is assuming that everybody has trauma and we don't know how that has been affected, has affected anybody. So just being considerate of our language and how we speak to children and our coworkers also. So that's all I have for this video, and thanks for stopping by. Make sure to like and subscribe. I will hopefully have more read alouds up soon. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but in the meantime, I will catch you later. Also, make sure to follow me on Instagram, Miss Alyssa's Book Nook, and then it's also the same for YouTube, Miss Alyssa's Book Nook. Bye.